Go. Okay, so this is what we were going to talk about today. Isur ha'ataka b'mivchanim, the prohibition of copying tests. Ha'im yesh heter lahatik b'mivchanim k'dei lahasig tziyunim tovim l'mi shemitраgesh b'mivchanim. So the desire is to copy a test for someone who wants to get a good score and is gets very emotional around taking tests. That's literally what he means. Okay, let's see.
Boy, am I in trouble?
So pashut shekol hamivchanim shenasim b'mosdot hachinuch lemineihem naasim lekama to'alot sheyotzot mehem. So here's what's obvious. The reason why tests are administered by different kinds of schools is for the various benefits that result from taking tests. Aleph, she'adam chozer heitev al hachomer hanilmad. Person reviews the material very well. U'misakem et kol halimudim v'hadvarim nichkakim heitev belibo. And this ability to summarize all of his studies allows the information to be well embedded in his heart. In other words, you'll remember it. Number two, hatziyunim kovim b'tiv ha'tu'uda shel hanivchan shal yada yuchal yitkabel makom avoda. That doing well on a test determines your aptitude, and then it allows you for proper placement in work. So those are the benefits, right? B'chol mikre yesh kan iser shel genevat da'at habriot shechoshvim shehu mitzdayen bo bizman she'eno yodea tov. So by cheating on a test because you have the answers in advance is genevas das. That's number one, because you are deceiving the proctors of the exam by making them think that you know what you really don't know. Zot va'od hu gorem busha lechaverav sheyedu yoter tov mimenu velo he'etiku v'kiblu tziyun pachot mimenu. You're also causing embarrassment to your colleagues who actually know the material better than you do, and you're getting a higher score. V'gam gorem l'rashlanut mitzad talmidim shlo yechazru heitev al hachomer hanilmad, and this also causes a general malaise among the students because they're not going to want to study the material as much as they should, if they know that there's always an option for them to get a hold of the test. And you're certainly exercising falsehood. And the Torah says you must distance yourself from sheker. Because you are falsely demonstrating to others that you know that you've mastered the material when in reality you have not.
So this is referring to university, to something that has to do with profession, not a high school.
He hasn't distinguished whether it's
getting me set a job to further.
That's sometimes that can apply. He says there are many reasons why that test taking is beneficial. Even in high school, you take a test so that they can advance you, so that you can get into university, so that you can get a job. So it's just one step removed, right? It could be even third grade. These are all of the reasons apply to no matter what level of scholastic aptitude a person's being tested. Uvishut Mishnah Halachos. So this is Rav Menashe Klein, and he writes, Kasav she'im hulo made rak l'shem kabbalat toar o tu'uda de'eno nogea rak le'inyan shel kavod v'chayotze bazeh. He writes that if a person is studying just for the purpose of getting some kind of honorific title or certificate, and it has no other ramification, like, you take the smichas chaver exam and you get your certificate, right? And there's no other ramification. You're not going to you're not getting smicha. They're not going to make you a rabbi so that you can get a job. Azayeshkan inyan shel genevas das. There still is nonetheless genevas das. There's deceptiveness. Amnam im hulome toar shuhu rotza lavod bo l'mashal roa cheshbon. But let's say you are studying a discipline that you want to get a job in, let's say accounting, okay? ומקבל ציון גבוה על ידי שהעתיק. And you get a high score because you've copied off of someone else's exam or you've gotten the answers in advance. מלבד שיש בזה איסור גנבת דעת, יש בזה דרורה דממונה וחשש איסור גזל. He says there's also genevas das, there's deceit, deceptiveness, and there's also an aspect of financial misdealing and a fear of stealing. Ki hama'avid shemekabel oto la'avoda. He says because your employer who hires you based on your passing the exam, upa'amim muchan l'shalem lo yoter avur hatzionim hatovim sheyesh lo, and sometimes will be prepared to hire you at a higher salary based on your higher scores. Im hayodea et ha'emet shahatzionim lo nechonim hu lo haya mekabel oto la'avoda. If he would have known that you really only just you don't know, you don't have a high aptitude, he would not have accepted you for employment. Or he would have hired you for a lesser position instead of a higher position. Because of od she'im yitbarer hadavar, yachol ha'ma'avid litbo oto lebeis din u'lekabel es kaspo chazara. Rav Menashe Klein goes so far as to say that if a person hires you based on your passing of an aptitude exam, and then discovers that you really cheated on the exam, then he has grounds in a beis din to fire you and to get all of his money back.
It's like fraud. Guy has a fake fraudulent certificate. He's a doctor or wants to, right?
Or fake credentials on your resume. That they have a degree from this university, they don't.
Yeah.
You get hired on that basis, you get fired.
That's right. That's
And you
right.
have to pay back all the money that you got paid if you were hired for 6 months.
Asher al kain ein safek sheyesh kan isur shel genevas das upa'amim isur shel mamon. And so therefore, there's certainly genevas das. There's deceit, and sometimes even financial misstealing. V'chein helo lesor b'shut shevet halevi shehadavar pashut she'asur ve'ein shum safek badavar. And therefore, the Sefer Shevet Halevi paskins that it's obvious that it's usher. There's no doubt in this matter. V'Hashem yizbarach lo yimna tov laholchim b'tamim. And the blessed God will not withdraw goodness from one who goes innocently. V'chein hela, so the Makor Baruch writes, V'chein hela b'shut igros Moshe, because of she'asur lasos kein afilu shal yedei kach yachsoch, let's see, zman milachzor al hachomer. Val yedei zeh yihiyeh lo yoter zman lilmod Torah. Rav Moshe says, what about the argument from the yeshiva guys who say, well, if I can get a copy of the exam in advance, or I can copy off of someone else without having to study, I'll have more time to study Torah. So isn't that a good argument? Okay. Ki asur lignov kidei lilmod Torah. Rav Moshe says you're not allowed to steal in order to study Torah. V'chein kasav b'sefer Mishpatei HaShalom. The same thing is in the sefer Mishpatei HaShalom. Okay.
We keep calling it Geneva das, and I've heard the term many times, right? But it's just Geneva. Geneva is stealing. I'm just being more specific that you're stealing knowledge, like you're saying Geneva das.
Genevas das is where there's no money involved, so it's not the same form of Geneva as regular Geneva. You're not stealing someone's money; you're stealing someone's faith, or you're stealing someone's belief in you, right? So that's why it's really a borrowed term. It is a form of Geneva, but it's an unusual form of Geneva.
Is the punishment any different? Like, is it any different, or
yeah,
you're just being more
sure.
specific?
Yeah, the punishment is different. With Geneva, the Heshivas Hagzela Sher Gazal, you have to return what you stole. When you deceive someone, how do you return it? I mean, you do have to.
How do you compensate, or you just fire, or you just...
There's no way to. I guess the only way to the only restitution that you can make is to come clean. That's the restitution. right? But sometimes the damage is already done. Geneva stas, it can be in any walk of life where there's no money involved. Let's say you get into a relationship with someone and you tell her that, you're this, and that, and you're really none of that. That's Geneva stas, and that creates a lot of problems.
So Kesselchino, like you steal someone's sleep, is also a form of Geneva.
It's a form of Geneva as well. Yeah. But again, there's there you could argue that maybe there could be compensation. Sometimes a basin could assess compensatory damages um, for taking away someone's sleep and stuff like that. That would be unusual. It's just telling you that there's an isser to do that. Okay. Next, and I'll have to send you the next piece. The next packet is our final packet, and then the safer is over. So we're gonna have to figure out what to do after this. We're learning through this week, and then I believe Monday and Tuesday, and then I'm gone to Israel for about 10 days. So I'll figure out what we're going to learn when we get back. Okay. Hizmin rofei bishvil chavero michayav bahotzaot. So you make an appointment with a doctor for your friend. So you get your friend into a doctor. Who's responsible to pay the bill? Hayinu b'misada be'echad hasoadim ived et hakarato. We were at a restaurant, and one of the people we were dining with lost his cognition. That seems to be what it means. It means like he beta takarato. He couldn't recognize anything. I guess it means he had some kind of loss of orientation or loss of rationality. What would be the word?
Cognition.
Cognition, yeah. Izmanti lo rofe sheyitapel bo. So I ordered a doctor to try to attend to him. Ula'acher tipul katzar kava rofe et moto. So maybe the term ibeda takarato is maybe a term that is used to describe a person who's collapsed. Let me just see. Ibed et takarato. He lost consciousness. That's what it means. He collapsed. Is basically, we were at a restaurant, one of the diners just collapsed. I got a doctor to quickly come over and to attend to him. And after a short time of attending to him, the doctor declared him dead. That's a sad story. You ruined a perfectly fine evening. Ambulance. So now the question is, who's got to pay for the doctor and the ambulance? Alai o al yorshav shel hamanoach. Is it on me to pay? I mean, not only did he ruin my dinner, now he's expecting me to pay for his ambulance and his doctor bill. So who has to pay for that? Is it upon me, or is it upon his heirs? So what would you say?
Say it's on the person who died.
It would seem fairly obvious, no?
Yeah, I was doing the right. Would you rather say if you dropped on the floor, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to be responsible and walk away? That's not reluctant for you.
Right. Well, there's probably Good Samaritan laws that you have an obligation to attend to him.
It's also the same laws exempt the doctor, or whoever endeavors to do it in good faith. Something happens, like a delivery of baby on a plane, and something happens to the baby, doctor generally is exempt from that. He was overly negligent or something, but
Right. Unless he's overly negligent, right?
But also the policy, if you hold the guy who calls the doctor liable, that would discourage anybody from doing that. So it's a bad policy, right?
Right.
Like if they announce on the airplane, is there a doctor on the plane and, you're sitting in business class watching a movie? Now, do you want to go be like, what achrayus do you have? Would be even a better question.
Yeah,
Well, doctor is different, don't they have an obligation?
they have an obligation, but here, yeah, I'm not even a
This is-
doctor. I'm just having dinner with the guy and all of a sudden he collapses. Now, it doesn't even necessarily indicate that this guy is, I'm dining with him. Maybe I'm dining with my wife and he's at the table next to me and he collapses. So, but I also, as a good Samaritan, I go ahead and I want to get a medical care. But who's liable for that? So it should seem obvious that the family is going to have to assume responsibility for that bill. But let's say the kids are stubborn, or the wife of the decedent who's handling his estate, she says, "Who told you to call the ambulance?"
You almost ruined my insurance.
Yeah. So Kasav Maran b'Shulchan Aruch she'im nahar shataf kelav. So we have a psak in the Shulchan Aruch that if a river is washing away, there's a flash flood, and it comes onto my field, and it's about to wash away my possessions that are on the field, my plow, my wagon, all this stuff. The chavero yorad lahatzilas hakelim velo hitzil, ein lo elis charo. And my friend goes onto the field with an attempt to try and save my items, but he's unsuccessful. Ein lo elis charo. He's entitled to only compensation for his work. Meaning, what does that mean? He can't charge you a bill for extra exertion. He can only charge you as a poel batel, he can only charge minimum wage for his efforts. He can't say, well, I dove into the water and I tried to do this and I tried to do that, and I'm an expert diver and I should get paid on a higher scale. No, if you would have saved my stuff, then maybe we could have what to talk about. But if you didn't save my stuff, I appreciate the effort, but you get minimum wage. Because of harama, the dafka im hitna im habe'alim sheyishalmulo, aval im lo hitna im habe'alim. And the Rama takes it one step further. He says that's only if you stipulated before you went in to try and save your friend's items that you're doing this for pay. Right? So you say to the guy, hey, your stuff, there's a river about to wash away all your stuff. Would you like me to try and save it? And he says, yes, please. And then the guy says, are you willing to pay for it? He says, yes, I'll pay you for your time and your effort. Then since no amount was stipulated and the guy was unsuccessful, he is entitled to be paid a wage, but just a standard minimum wage. However, if there was no stipulation and the guy went on the field without consulting the owner first, then lo hitna im haba'olim v'yared lahatzil v'lo hitzel ein lo klum kivin shelo ho'ilo. He's not entitled to any compensation. Like he can't go over later to the guy and say, I lost out on 2 hours of work and I ruined my clothes and I destroyed my cell phone because it was in my pocket when I went in to dive for your stuff. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to save your stuff, but here's a bill for all the things that I need to be compensated for. Sorry, I'm not obligated to compensate you for those things.
It's a volunteer, it's the column in law.
A volunteer.
Volunteer. He chose to do it,
Yeah. But isn't there but he's a good Samaritan also.
Yeah, but he's not entitled to compensation if he didn't, like the halacha is, you'd have to talk to the guy or implicitly have the guy's agreement to pay. You go ahead and choose to jump into the river to save his dog or something, on you.
Yeah.
Aren't you motivated to save somebody's stuff?
Well, only if there is a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda, right? But you're only entitled to compensation for it if you actually saved his stuff. If you didn't end up saving his stuff, you're not entitled to compensation for lost work and stuff like that. Because of Sham Hasma Shim Lo Hayu Haba Olim Sham Afilu lo hitna hareze ki'ilu hitna. But then the sma qualifies it further. And he says that if the owner is absent and you just try to save his stuff in his absence, it's as if there was a stipulation that you would be compensated. So, uvemikre hazeh, ein safek, she'im hacholeh hazeh haya be'efsharuto lahazmin rofei or ambulance, v'haya be'atzmo mazmin. He says there's no doubt that if this person who collapsed had enough consciousness to be able to get a doctor or an ambulance on his own, he certainly would have done so. He says, then that's certain that the fact that I called over a doctor and he got an ambulance is as if the decedent himself did the same. And therefore the heirs have to pay that amount. And the Makor Baruch just says, Hatam Pashut, the Kevin Shuhu Ba'atzmo, Ilo Hayachal Hayamazmin Rofei Ba'atzmo, that if the guy was able to do it himself, he would have ordered a doctor. The fact that I ordered an ambulance and got a doctor over on your behalf, it's as if I'm your shaliach. I'm just doing what you would want to be done. V'yatera mizu. He says, I'll go even further. Afilu im hachola b'hakara, v'hu b'matzav shel pikuach nefesh, v'hu tzavach ve'omer, al tazminu li rofe. He says, let's say the guy is in a dangerous situation. He's having a heart attack, okay, and he's still conscious. And we say, the doctor's coming. He says, no, I don't want any doctors, no doctors, right? And you don't have a right to play with your life like that. You still have to get a doctor, and the person who's having the heart attack still has to pay for it. Yeah, he says, and what's the source for this? So the Makor Baruch says, the Isa b'Sanhedrin, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Minayin l'roas chaver shutovea b'nahar, o chaya gorurato, o listin ba'in alav. How do you know that if you see your friend is about to drown in the river, or you see that he's being dragged off by a lion, or you see bandits ganging up on him, shuhu chayav lahatzilo, how do you know that there's an obligation for you to save him? Talmud loymar lo samadol damreyecha. Torah says you cannot stand idly by your brother's blood. And even if the person says, no, I'm fine, as the lion is dragging him off, no, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. Okay. Hare Isa b'maseches Yoma, the Gemara in Yoma says, Rofe omer tzarech v'chayla omer eino tzarech, shomin l'rofe. If the doctor says you need medical attention, and the case in Maseches Yoma is the doctor is saying you need to eat. It's Yom Kippur, and the doctor says you need to eat because you're going to get very, very sick. And the sick person says, no, doc, I'm fine, I'm going to fast. Shomin l'rofe. You listen to the doctor. Halachically, you must eat. My taima, what's the reason? Tuvnahu denakit lei. So you're overcome by this temporary insanity. Upirish Rashi, shtus machmas cholio. It's some kind of insanity that overcomes you because of your sickness. And the fact of the matter is that there are situations like this where a person says, it's Yom Kippur, how can I possibly eat? No way. The doctor says, if you don't eat, you can go into diabetic shock. You have to eat something, right? Otherwise, we're going to have to go to the hospital. I'm fine. Halachically, the rabbi has to paskin, you must eat. All right? And the Aruch translates the word tuvna as like you're just so far dreit. I guess that would be the right word. Like you're so mentally just preoccupied in the moment that you don't want to hear about rational things. Fardreit? Yeah, like you're so.
Which is always different. Sidrate.
Sidrate. Right. The imkain hu adin kan. And so oh, it's the same thing would be true over here. Kevin sharoim shahachola hazeh tzarich rofe miyad v'zeh pashut u'borer lekulam. So since people see that the chola needs a doctor, and they see he needs a doctor right away, and it's so obvious to everyone, this guy's collapsed, he needs a doctor, or he's having a heart attack. Even if he says, I don't need it, we assume that he's just consumed by some temporary insanity. You're not thinking clearly, and we order a doctor for him. So how do we know that the choila himself has to pay for it? The Russian Sanhedrin addresses the case of where you know that you see your friend drowning or being dragged by a lion and so forth. The Rosh says, that the person who saved has to compensate the person who saved him. Right? So you got a guy who's being surrounded by bandits, and so he's got to take out his AK-47 and gun them all down. I don't know why I went to that drastic example, but I don't know. I mean,
So, based on this, so if they announce on a plane, is there a doctor, you have to,
a doctor, first of all,
if you're on El Al and you're on a flight, you know it's a yid, or it
yeah,
doesn't even matter.
Lo Samel Dam Reyacha, absolutely. I think a doctor can be sued if they say, is there a doctor on the plane, and you don't get up. All right.
There's some states, I think, that have exemptions for that, but yeah, on the face of it, that's what happens.
Let me know.
Doctor has no jurisdiction, so it doesn't, an airplane is a different ballgame, there's no Israel license or American license, Canadian license, it
It's a
doesn't
little
matter.
complicated. They initially there was no law, then there was law, and then some, I know it's different places.
Depends where the airplane is, where you're flying over,
Yeah.
what's the, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Airspace is defines where you're.
So a Canadian doctor, if it's over US versus the Americans, or everybody, and so that could be a problem.
No, but you can't practice, a Canadian can't practice in the States unless he's
I understand that,
certified.
Some provinces have Good Samaritan legislation.
well, that's what I'm saying, so the same as you're flying to Fort Lauderdale and somebody, and a Canadian doctor, and then somebody has a heart attack, then the Canadian doctor help this person.
Would a doctor be committing a crime if he doesn't identify himself as a doctor during a medical emergency in a plane? Oh my gosh.
On vacation, don't bother me. First, give me your OHIP card.
So this Quora is not that good at bringing answers. CMAJ, what is CMAJ? That's some medical association, I guess. Canadian Medical Association Journal. Is there a doctor on board? Practical recommendations for managing in-flight medical emergencies. Hearing the call to go out for a doctor at 36,000 feet can be anxiety provoking for any physician. See, we never think about the feelings of the doctor. Yeah. If health professionals offer their expertise, they may have to manage an unfamiliar clinical scenario in a foreign and limited environment without knowledge of the available resources. Passengers who are healthcare professionals, along with members of the flight crew, are often important resources for in-flight frontline care. Okay, so this is offering advice to the doctor.
Must be in Shiloh's Jubas, no, that's a good question.
Okay, here we have the Ottawa blog. Is there a doctor on board? There are no international and national mandatory reporting systems or databases. Let's see. Legal and ethical responsibilities. The intricacies around responding to an emergency as a good Samaritan, whether in the air or on the ground, are convoluted and fraught with pitfalls. Here, I'm going to distill it to the basics that can be applied to most situations, but not every situation. Okay, I'll send you this article. In Canada, outside the province of Quebec, which is regulated by French heritage civil law, there is in fact no legal duty or obligation on physicians or anyone for that matter to provide volunteer emergency medical services to a person in peril. Generally, all jurisdictions around the world have some sort of legislation that protects physicians from liability if they choose to help. Okay, we'll have to hold it here for today. And we'll continue in Mirza Shem tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.
Remember that scene in Seinfeld?
Yeah.